Welcome to Faith Fondue, a new podcast featuring author and speaker Haley DeMaria and teacher and blogger Ann Strickers. Faith Fondue will feature a melting pot of topics, ignited by a flame, our faith, and guided by the Holy Spirit. It's the week of May 2nd, the 6th week of Easter, and today is Mother's Day. Good morning, Ann.
Morning, Haley. This is season 2, episode 4. And as we talk about the flame and what's hot, yes, this today specifically is Mother's Day. Now, this goes back to one of the topics that I enjoyed. We discussed in February, is this an actual holiday or a B-list holiday? So as we begin that conversation, some of the things that we'll discuss today is, yes, obviously motherhood, some of the tensions and celebrations of this day, spiritual motherhood. We'll talk about John's gospel and the importance of petitionary prayer. So with that outline in mind, what do you think, Haley? A, B list? What do you got?
So I've always viewed this as a Hallmark holiday. It was not founded by Hallmark, but I feel like it could have been because they make so much money off of it. Everybody feels like they need to buy their mom a Mother's Day card. But it's a complicated holiday too. First of all, not everybody has a good relationship with their mother. Not everybody wants to celebrate their mom. And many people no longer have their moms. I have a good friend who just buried her mom on Friday, a couple of days ago. What a hard day for her today too. There are many moms who are estranged from their children or don't know where they are, or perhaps they've lost a child. And many women long to be a mom and are going down that really bumpy path. And, right now it's not currently in God's plan. So I will always celebrate my mom on this day. I'm fortunate enough to still have her, be able to call her. I will celebrate my grandmother today. But really, as a mom myself, every day that I get to spend with my boys and every day that I can talk to them and, just be their mom, really every day is Mother's Day. So it can be a tricky day, but it's certainly not one to be overlooked. And it's certainly a time to celebrate all moms.
Yeah, I agree, Haley. I was smiling as you were talking about your mom and then your grandmother, that you have your grandmother in your life still. What a gift. And we'll talk about her a little bit later, but I celebrate my mom too. I'm very close to my mom. I talk to her once, if not twice a day. And she was close to her mother, and that was such a gift. I loved my grandmother. I live in San Francisco, so sometimes I'll drive by where my grandmother lived just to remember her. So this is quite the day for women that we really have. It's such a gift to have a great mom, and I'm grateful for that. So, and I know how much your boys mean to you, and I've seen a little bit of evidence for how much you mean to them from your younger son, but I'm curious to know what they're doing for you today. How will you be celebrated?
So, Mother's Day in our house has taken different forms. When they were very young, Jamie used to travel a lot. My husband was gone. He was working internationally. There were some months he was gone 2 or 3 weeks at a time.
Wow.
It was hard. I was mom and dad, and which, many mothers do that full time. So it gave me a great appreciation, for single parents as well. I certainly wasn't that, but it felt like it sometimes. And, it was Jamie was exhausted from traveling as well. So, on the weekends he would want to sleep in, and, my job as a mom doesn't stop on the weekends. It's, in fact, sometimes it's harder if they're not in school. So for Mother's Day one year, Jamie offered me sent me to a hotel in DC, and I went to the spa during the day, and I ordered room service, and I slept in, and it was magical. It was just glorious, really. And I came home. I did see my kids that Mother's Day. I came home Sunday afternoon. But I came home a better mom. So not spending that time away from my kids was really healthy for me. So I did that for a few years. I came home and I said, I could do this every Mother's Day. But then I realized that children enjoy celebrating their moms. And, part of being a mother is, we all put our kids first for the most part, although on Mother's Day, those few weekends a year, I didn't. But, my kids, I have found over the years, even today, Edward's 17, James is 19. I know they've been planning for today, and I know Edward has had a box sitting on his desk for, about 2 months that he's been waiting to give to me, and
Wow.
woke up this morning so excited. Do you want your gift now? Do you want to wait till dad gets home?
Oh,
And I said, oh no, I want it now. I've been looking at that box for 2 months.
that's
So
awesome.
that is actually a joy as a parent to know that your
Sure.
kids want to celebrate you. So I have my Mother's Day mug that we'll post a picture of from my second born child, and we'll just I get to choose what I do today. So we'll have my choice of dinner, my choice of dessert. I will try not to do laundry, but it'll just still be there tomorrow.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it's fun as a parent to see your children want to celebrate you. I think that's
Yes.
probably the biggest joy of the day.
What a gift. Yeah. When you opened with this idea that it's a Hallmark holiday, I grew up hearing that. So I don't know that was my mom's belief, but her father always said that. And so, a little bit of skepticism about the holiday. But if that card, I lived away from home for a long time. My brother lives, far away in DC. I'm telling you, Haley, if that card did not arrive on time, you heard about it. So there was a certain amount of fear around Mother's Day. Don't mess this one up.
Yep.
But, just having a sense of humor about that and, what goes with this day. So I appreciated just kind of hearing some of your comments about today being, I think, a day that I feel like social media has allowed for people to both celebrate moms and kind of share maybe their own experience of Mother's Day. So yes, for people for whom this day is difficult, I have seen a number of people kind of comment on that, and not to take away from the day, but just I would hope as a society we could, and even in our faith communities, we could have enough room for both, where we could celebrate it and honor it, but also realize that maybe people feel the way that they do. I read an article recently in America Magazine, imagining barrenness as a space of possibility. And the author, her name is Kaya Oakes. She talked about the experience on Mother's Day of going to Mass. And at the end, they usually have all moms stand for a
So, Anne, you're breaking up a bit. I don't know if you can still hear me. So, I'm going to just kind of keep chatting about this article that you were talking about. It's a fruitful life. Uh,
um we have to honor those women. I do think there's something to be said. Being a mom is a choice and it's a gift, and it's totally selfless, and the least we can do is bless them and honor them. And I want there again to be space for both, that this woman can feel this way, and we can also not take away the need for the blessing or the space as a community to just acknowledge these women.
yeah, absolutely. So, I just want to fill in because you broke up a little bit in the beginning sharing that, but you were talking about a mass where the moms were asked to stand up and how others might feel. We heard the end of that conversation, but the first part just blipped a little bit. And I agree. It's motherhood is complicated, and it can be painful for those who aren't moms, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't celebrate those who are. I don't think our community, certainly our faith community, I don't think has become so PC that we can't celebrate people, even if it might cause hurt feelings to others. That's never anyone's intention. I think celebrating and honoring is only done in a positive way. So, we'll have to make sure we post a link to that article as well.
Absolutely. It's very thoughtful, and my parish has said they do acknowledge the different types of mothers. I'm not going to stand as a mom. I'm a godmother, but I'm not going to stand during that moment. And actually, I've realized in my own life that that's a gift. Like my mom said, I always wanted to be a godmother, and my mom wasn't, and she's a fantastic mom, and I think she would have been a great godmother. It just didn't happen amongst her circle of friends and whatnot. But we can celebrate different types of motherhood too. And I'm fine with that. But I do want to, have that moment for women to just who raise children. And, even that isn't black and white in the sense of I heard Billie Jean King speak at USF, and Billie Jean King is one of the greatest American athletes, incredibly successful tennis player. People know her story, which is great. I think they should. She was married to a man, and then later she has a lifelong partner, Ilana Kloss, and she talked at one point in her life about raising a child. And yeah, she didn't give birth, but like how much. So she says, I have an understanding of motherhood. There were many years where we were raising a child, and I don't totally understand like the backstory on that, but I thought that was really interesting. Like that you might not expect something from someone in their story, and, everyone's, journey is a little bit different. And I'm glad she shared that. It offered a different dimension into her career. But, I do love learning about pro athletes who have raised children, are also given birth, like Serena Williams, who is competing now after having her daughter, or here in San Francisco, we're preparing for the U.S. Women's Open. Michelle West is her married name. She had a baby a year ago. She will be competing in the U.S. Women's Open. So that's exciting. So it's just fun to think about, different contexts for mom and the way that they shape our lives.
Well, it is. And, as, two women, former athletes, you and I, who love sports, it is amazing to watch these professional athletes who are at the top of the sport, at the top of their game, at the top of their physical peak, I guess. A professional athlete, they're really at the peak of their careers. And to give birth is not, it is a trauma to your body. So you think of someone who, is injured and has to battle back. It's not an injury, but it is a traumatic experience physically for your body. So I love those stories. I love it when women come back after giving birth and are able to still compete at that high level. It's pretty remarkable.
Yes.
So we celebrate those moms as well. And it's we don't have to give birth to be a mother. Certainly there are adoptive moms. I have a good friend who was adopted. Her mom had 3 children, gave birth to 3 children, and then adopted 2 children. And, she's never loved them any differently. And I find that remarkable.
Yes.
Loving children is not something that comes natural to me. I'm not somebody that loves kids. My mother loves kids. I was kind of nervous to have my own. Of course, you love your own because they're yours. But I've always been so fascinated and really amazed by, women who have adopted or who are a godmother, or who, like Billie Jean King, taken a child and raised them and love them as their own. It is, that is a gift that really should be recognized and acknowledged for being pretty remarkable as well.
Yeah, I agree. And, just to hear you speak about that, I mean, I touched on it. Well, I didn't. I wrote it in my notes. St. Edith Stein, who talked about spiritual motherhood, one of which I think is a beautiful concept. And it's looking at women and saying that we have a nature that is maternal, and it means that we care for people, and, in particular for the young or the vulnerable, in a way that is just in our nature by being a woman. And one of my friends has given birth. She has a son, and she and her husband have been trying to adopt, and it's been very challenging. And she told her husband, we're getting older. I don't know if I want an infant, and at the same time, this desire is not going away, in the sense of she said, I'm going to have to fulfill this in some other way. And I looked at her and I said, that's what spiritual motherhood is. It's that energy and that love that, has been, I believe, been given by God as a gift. And how it will manifest itself is to be determined by God's will. And, they're working with God's will, whatever that may be. So it might not be adopting a child, but she said, if that means being a foster parent for a while, maybe that's it. Or she's just really open and she's praying for that. And I thought that's such a beautiful desire. So I, hope and pray that it's revealed in time, but that's really what spiritual motherhood is. And she feels it. So
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
cool.
Absolutely. I love that term. I'll have to make sure I use that. So,
Yeah.
speaking of spiritual motherhood, we can move on to our spiritual stew. So, actually, this gospel this week, today's gospel also popped up last week too. I noticed, but we hear in John 15, "Love one another as I have loved you," and that is such a common phrase. I think most people who even don't attend mass and who are perhaps not even Christian or religious, probably have heard that before. So love one another as I have loved you. And, it's perfect for today because really being a mother is all about love. And a mother's love is, it is unique. It is unconditional, just as our Father's love is unconditional for us. And, I think about this a lot. Especially having teenage boys and moving into young adulthood. And, they're making their own decisions. They're out on their own. We don't always agree with some of the things that they do, but we always love them. So, I often think, as Christian parents, when we think we are not worthy of God's love, I think we just have to remember our own children. Because no matter what they do, what they say, what they believe, how they act, I would love my children no matter what. Even in the most horrific of situations, I might be disappointed, I might be angry, but I'm always going to love them. That's just it's just woven into the fabric of being a parent, I think. So it's a great reminder, again, for us as God's children. He might get angry with us. We've certainly seen examples of that. He might be
Mm-hmm.
disappointed,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't mean he doesn't love us. He always loves us. Loving someone doesn't mean you aren't disappointed or angry with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And I love this part of John's gospel where he's really asking us to love one another. Jesus says, "Love one another
Mm-hmm.
as I have loved you." And again, these words are very simple, but can also be very hard to follow. And, in some ways, I view the word love in this instance, maybe certainly not as romantic love. We don't need to love everybody in a romantic way but it means, we respect them, we care for them,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we love them as a person and as God's creation. So we can disagree with people and we can
Yeah.
be angry with people and we can maybe not even like somebody.
Yeah.
But we still have to love them in the sense that, the way that God is asking us to. We still have to respect them. We have to care for them as people. So again, very simple words, sometimes really hard to follow through with, but
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
we're called to do as Christians, to care and respect for people, even when we don't agree with them or when we're angry at them, or disappointed.
I, there's so much to think about there, Haley, because I think about love as a theological virtue, and it can be a little bit difficult to understand or to teach about. And it's the idea that we can love because God loved us first. And I'm hearing you talk about unconditional love, and I feel that from my own parents, and yet I I don't think that can be easy. I want to think it's a given because you and I have had that experience, but for people for whom it's not, I mean, that is God's grace. That's God's gift that you have been able to offer that to your boys. That's remarkable. Like, I think that's really God at work in our lives, that we are able to love. And even in those spaces that you talked about where we might not like what they're doing, where like the bottom line is you respect, or the bottom line is, yes, they know that you have their back. I think that's I think that's a compelling argument for living a life of faith, is that you can love someone even when they disappoint you. And it's like that tension, and you can still say this is not okay. Like part of love is setting those limits, is letting someone make their mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of parents don't want their children to make mistakes.
For
And of
sure.
course we don't. How could you, right? I mean, it's got to be hard to see, or even with your own spouse, or people like siblings and whatnot, so that we can have that space for someone that I will care about you and I'm here for you, even when you're at your worst self. One time, one of my colleagues said, I said, he's mid-married to his wife. I joke. I'm like, Chad, you must have been a child groom. He looked so young when he got married, and they didn't have children for a while. So it was, and I only say that because they've been married for so long, but their oldest is maybe 14. So you would have thought, he maybe got married later. Anyways, I said, I can't believe so and so said that to their spouse. And he said, oh, Anne, you've obviously not been married. Like, meaning like you could say the worst things to your spouse. And I was like, how could that happen if you love them so much? But then I think about my own parents, and I tell my teenagers that I've said things to my parents like terrible,
Terrible.
terrible. You're like, mm-hmm.
Well, for sure. In fact, that is probably one of the comments I get the most from people, especially mothers and daughters, but especially mothers who have read my book. Because the relationship with my mom is super complicated in the book.
Yeah,
And really every mom has felt that.
yeah,
And all it is, and I'm sure this is true with you, is I was hurting and I was angry and I had all of these emotions that of course are very normal for someone who's experienced trauma. But my mom was a safe place for me to take that out on
mm-hmm.
because I
Yep.
knew no matter what I said to her or how mean or how vindictive and unkind I was, and I was, she would always love me.
Yeah.
And that's a gift and a burden that mothers give their
Yeah.
children, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was such a gift for me to have my mom present with me to be the recipient of all of these emotions that I had to get out because we do have to get those emotions out when we're experiencing, going through tough times. But boy, what a burden as a mom to just, be
Yeah.
that punching bag.
Like, yeah, that is a good part of your story. I thank you for making that connection because, yeah, I mean, it's from your journal, it's from your experiences. And I think about, I think I was a pretty quote unquote easy teenager, but I do remember being freshman at Notre Dame, and my parents, to save money, my mom took me in August. My dad came with my uncle for a game to check on me and then go to a game. So, right. So I remember, for example, what's that? One of those first events, one of the night events. And it was like, it was like the t-shirt, the
Oh yeah, the
graffiti shirt
graffiti
or
dance.
something. But there was something with parents, and I just didn't want to be with my mom. And it was probably really hard for her because she wasn't with my dad and she's there alone and her daughter's going away. And, it couldn't have been easy on either accounts, but I still think about my behavior, and I don't like, but I was my 18-year-old self. It's not
Yep.
a justification. So I guess what I'm trying to say is some people don't like the image of God as parent. But considering all that I put my parents through, all that they've done for me, it resonates with me because that love truly is unconditional and it is profound. And yeah, I think you do a great job writing about that at your best and worst self in the hospital, etc. So,
Mostly my worst self, but
oh, it's hard. Yeah. And it's got to be a hard experience for a parent to see your child going through that. I mean,
I can't even
my mom
imagine.
has said through my health issues over and over again, I wish it were me and not you. And, you can't, you can't do that obviously, literally, you can't do that.
Right,
So, yeah,
right.
that they feel that way. Well, my piece of the stew is a book that, as you were talking, Haley, I was like, okay, I really do need to reread this book. It is Learning to Pray, A Guide for Everyone by James Martin. And usually I highlight when I read and put like tabs, and I haven't done it for this. I am not joking. I might go back and reread it because so many of the ideas that you're talking about, I'm like, oh, he wrote about that in the book, and I can't make the connection right now. But I thought one section in the book that was interesting is about petitionary prayer. So people are very familiar with petitionary prayer. It's asking God specifically, for people who go hungry today, that they may find nourishment. For this, we pray to the Lord. And Karl Rahner, who's, I think, I haven't really studied him, but largely considered one of the greatest theologians of the 20th century. He's a German Jesuit priest. He wrote this in The Need and the Blessing of Prayer. He said, quote, "It is a difficult task to assume the defense of the prayer of petition." So meaning like, yeah, if a young person's like, "Miss Strickers, why are we doing this?" Like, it's hard to defend it, like
Yeah.
I just appreciated that it was that. Thank you. Like, it's not something that we can logically or reasonably defend. And, that's apologetics, which is the need to defend something. And I often hear, well, we offer prayers of petition because it changes us. And I've certainly had that experience where I'm changed in the result of prayer, but that seems kind of selfish to me. So, I hold that tension that we continue to pray, offers, prayers of petition. We hope that we're changed in the process. But I mean, Aquinas has this great excerpt. That's like a redundant, great Aquinas and great. But I read this years ago and I've referenced it many times. Aquinas argued that by God's design, we do cause things to occur when we petition God in prayer, not because we change God's will, but because God has willed that if we pray, certain things will happen. Now that to me seems remarkably different than, oh, I will change, in my prayer. Like, wow, if I participate in these petitions, like God has willed that things will happen through my prayer. Wow, I'm an agent for change. I have agency. I have like a certain amount of power. So I'm not interested in did I pray enough or did I get it right? But it's just like, okay, this changes the perspective. So I don't know, some things like for our spiritual stew to kind of chew on there in terms of petitionary prayer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think there's a number of people who pray. There's many ways to look at this, right? There are times when we pray for very specific things, right? So we're these prayers of petition for a specific outcome or event.
A health
And
issue, right?
right,
A troubled marriage, looking for a job, right?
exactly, right? And those are and I think those prayers are genuinely offered up because they want God to intervene, or the saints, if we're praying to the saints, want to intervene
You are,
in
sure.
that prayer, that petition, that prayer of petition. And I participate in that, and I believe in that. The very specific intentional prayers. It's one of my favorite part of the masses are the offering up the petitions. But I also love the idea, and in thinking of what you were saying about being changed myself, I don't see it as selfish. My
Hmm.
prayers are oftentimes, I will pray for specific intentions for other people. My prayer for myself is always, always, help me to love as Jesus loved. Help me to pray as Jesus prayed. Help me to, not judge as Jesus didn't judge. So, and I've got kind of a whole litany of ones that I go through in terms of helping me to be more really like Jesus in terms of the way he saw and viewed and acted in life. No, I've actually never shared that publicly before, but those those are prayers where I'm asking to be changed,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's really, I guess I'd never thought of it as selfish before, and I don't think you would say that either.
Right.
But really, it is asking my heart to be changed because we don't always know what God's will is. So we might ask for a very specific prayer intention for someone or petition. But many times I will also pray in that same context for someone to feel God's love and strength to help them through what they're going through. Because really, that's ultimately what we need. We can pray for specifics, and that's great, and that we pray that God will listen and respond. But he always has the better answer, and he's always going to lead us down the path that we need to go. And what we need is the strength and the grace to get to go down that path.
Yeah. It is, it's something worth considering. Like, those are beautiful prayers that you offer. And I don't know, maybe I've just gone through the motions, Haley, too much of petitionary prayer. So just thinking about the prayers that we offer, and then why we're offering it, and then assuming this point of honors, like, it's not something I don't know that, I mean, some people want defense behind things, but like, to love as Jesus loved, to not judge as Jesus judged. That's, that's what it means to be a Christian, right? That's the identity of being like Christ. So sometimes it's just easy to keep it a little simpler.
Well, and as I'm praying to not judge as Jesus didn't judge, right? Because the examples he has of being all accepting and embracing is amazing.
Sure. Right.
I'm also sitting there listening to people's petitions for, more money to go on vacation. And I'm thinking, what kind of a prayer is that? Right. So in the same moment that I am praying to not judge, I'm still judging. We're all imperfect. And
has somebody really offered that prayer?
No, I made that up.
Okay.
but sometimes I feel like they're that superficial.
I can certainly give examples. Yeah.
That was just the first one I thought of, and that was kind of ridiculous.
For a windfall for this, we pray to the Lord.
Yes, or even to win the lottery, right?
Oh my goodness. But I guess I thought selfish isn't the right word, but in my family, my brother is divorced. It was not an easy event. My nieces, their mother is, involved in their life, and it's not been my parents. I don't know that they have forgiven her, and my dad prays for her. If you know my dad, you wouldn't be surprised. And I hope at my mom's best self, she's forgiven her, but moms defend their children as they should. And my dad has said, it helps me. So that's where I'm saying it's selfish, because there is anger, there's hurt, and it's like, okay, so he's doing a good thing. I mean, my nieces, their mother she's, a huge part of their life. Like, she is their mother.
Yeah.
We have to pray for her, whether or not she wronged my brother or he wronged her, or, we don't need to get into that. And parents will assume what they should about their own children. So, but my dad saying that, I think it has helped him, and that's not a bad thing. And I hope and I know that's not why he's only praying, but, it's like I said, it's interesting to just think about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I actually think it's remarkable that your dad is praying for, his former daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
I wish more people had the ability to do that, even if it is to change his own heart, because that in itself is a gift to his grandchildren.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So at
the end of the day, who benefits?
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Everybody kind of benefits.
Everybody does. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I can think of a lot of situations.
Yeah. So maybe this week, that's our takeaway. Maybe spend some time in petitionary prayer and just consider, who you're praying for. And I think it's okay to think, like, how does that affect you? But also, like, offering just some of the prayers that you shared. I think that's a great practice.
Yeah, so. I will be praying for mothers of all kinds, however we come about being moms. For spiritual motherhood, I love that term, for people who are offering that guidance in a spiritual way. I will pray specifically for my grandmother. She's 98 years old. She is moving this week into an assisted living facility. She has always been fiercely independent. She's remarkable. She got her education doctorate at, a time when women weren't doing that. She, taught aerial gunnery in World War II. She's teaching pilots how to shoot out of planes. And has always been a remarkable, fiercely independent woman, and this is a tough move for her. This is
Yeah.
this is it. She is not
Yeah.
moving anywhere else. And at 98, that is something to celebrate.
Yeah.
But it's got to be kind of hard to give that up
Yeah.
too. So praying for her, praying for my parents and my aunt and uncle who are facilitating that move,
Okay.
and praying for all children who are taking care of parents.
Yeah. Yep.
That's tough too, and can be very
Yeah.
tricky. So lots of prayers all around for just all parents and children.
Yeah. Just real quick, Haley, is this your maternal grandmother?
So it
And where
is
does she live?
it is
Or is this,
my father's
okay.
stepmom. So my
Okay.
dad's mom died when she was in her early 40s, and
Okay.
my grandfather
Oh.
married right away. So they were
Oh,
married
wow.
for a number of years, and my dad was 19 at the time. And so for me, she's always been my grandmother and a part of my life. But
Yeah.
she lives in Phoenix,
Okay.
and
Okay.
is, yeah, my last remaining
Yeah.
grandmother,
Wow.
grandparent.
Well, I didn't know that. And what a full circle kind of
Yeah.
conversation as we started today. So your dad, I didn't realize, lost his own mom when
Yep.
he was young. But it sounds like your family took in this woman, and you've always called her your grandmother, not your step grandmother, which is appropriate if people feel that way to call somebody that. But
Yep.
that's really special. So
Yeah. She is pretty special. And yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother step parents, or I love the new term they use now, bonus parents. But no,
oh, is
Carolyn,
that right?
yeah,
That's so
bonus
funny.
moms, I think is what they say. But no, she's always been my grandmother to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think of her as
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah. Well, my takeaway, I will be traveling to DC for my niece's confirmation, my goddaughter Grace.
Yay.
So it's a special day, and it will be different. So my brother is getting married in August. So his fiance, my future sister-in-law, who's lovely, she will be there, and she will, she's a stepmom, but
Bonus mom.
yeah, bonus mom, totally. Um, so it'll be fun to have her at this sacramental moment in my
Hmm.
niece's life. So I'll pray for her because I don't know what that's like, and to be a part of the mix.
Yeah.
Um, but it's bonus. That's kind of the answer, I think. And it'd be nice to have her there. But my goddaughter is so special to me. I think part of having her in my life is like, wow, she loves me too. Like, you love your children or your nieces and nephews, but it's just like you were saying, when your kids want to celebrate you, that love that they give is remarkable. So I get to see it this week.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, safe travels to you, and we will certainly
Yeah.
pray for Grace as well.
Yeah.
That's an exciting time.
Yeah. So we'll have a good week, and we'll see what next week brings in terms of our conversation, our faith fondue.
Absolutely. Thank you, and happy Mother's Day to everyone.